In the autumn of 1974, in a remote gully carved by wind and time into the sun-baked highlands of the Afar region of northeastern Ethiopia, a young paleoanthropologist named Donald Johansen knelt in the dust and felt the ground tilt beneath his feet. Not physically, but existentially. What he had just unearthed was not merely a bone or a fragment, or the kind of isolated fossil that fills a single drawer in a university archive. What he had found, piece by careful piece, emerging from the ancient sediment like a whisper from before recorded time, was a nearly complete skeleton of a creature who had walked this earth approximately 3.2 million years ago. She was small, barely 3.5 feet tall. Her bones were delicate. Her brain was no larger than an ape's, but she had walked upright on 2 feet across a landscape that the world had forgotten existed. That night, around a campfire that crackled against the vast Ethiopian darkness, the team played a cassette of the Beatles song "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds" on a portable recorder, and without quite understanding why, they called her Lucy. She was, at that moment, the oldest known human ancestor ever discovered. She was the proof that humanity itself had been born here in this ancient, unforgiving, and breathtakingly beautiful land. And she was only the beginning of what Ethiopia had yet to reveal. To understand the magnitude of what that discovery meant, and why it was only one chapter in a story far older and stranger than most people dare to imagine, you must first understand the land itself. Ethiopia is not simply a country, it is a living archive, a geological manuscript written across millions of years of volcanic upheaval, tectonic rupture, and climatic transformation. The Great Rift Valley, which cleaves through the heart of Eastern Africa like a wound in the planet's skin, passes directly through Ethiopia. And it is along this ancient scar that the Earth has, time and again, surrendered its most extraordinary secrets. The valley's sediment layers are a library of time, each stratum containing fossils, tools, ash deposits, and environmental clues that, when read by patient and brilliant minds, reconstruct epochs that no human eye witnessed. Ethiopia does not merely contain ancient history. Ethiopia is ancient history. Long before Lucy's bones were carried from that Afar gully in a cardboard box lined with foam, long before any Western scientist set foot in the Ethiopian highlands, this land held civilizations of staggering sophistication. The kingdom of Aksum, which flourished between approximately the 1st and 7th centuries of the Common Era, and which many scholars regard as one of the 4 greatest powers of the ancient world, alongside Rome, Persia, and China, rose from the fertile highlands of northern Ethiopia with a ferocity and elegance that still defies easy explanation. The Aksumites built towering stone obelisks called stelae that pierced the sky like petrified lightning bolts. Some of these monolithic towers exceeded 30 meters in height and weighed hundreds of tons, carved from single pieces of granite with a precision that continues to astonish engineers. They represented multi-story palaces, complete with false windows and doors etched into the stone face, each groove a testament to a civilization that had mastered both aesthetics and structural engineering centuries before many of its contemporaries had developed written language. The tallest stelae ever erected at Aksum, now lying fallen and broken in the dust, would have been, when standing, the largest monolithic structure in the ancient world. The Aksumite kingdom controlled trade routes that stretched from the Roman Empire to India, from Arabia to sub-Saharan Africa. Its merchants dealt in gold, ivory, incense, and slaves, accumulating wealth that funded architectural projects of breathtaking ambition. The Aksumites minted their own gold, silver, and bronze coins, one of only a handful of ancient kingdoms in the world to do so, and inscribed them with the names and faces of their kings, and later with the symbol of the cross, marking their conversion to Christianity in the 4th century under King Ezana. This was not a peripheral civilization following trends set elsewhere. This was a civilization setting its own terms with the ancient world, trading as equals with empires that today fill our history books, while Ethiopia itself is mentioned only in footnotes. But the secrets buried in Ethiopian soil reach even deeper than the kingdom of Aksum, deeper, in fact, than any civilization. to the very threshold of human consciousness itself. In 2003, Ethiopian paleoanthropologist Johannes Haile Selassie announced a discovery that made the world hold its breath. In the Middle Awash region of the Afar Depression, his team had uncovered fossil remains belonging to a hominin species that predated Lucy by nearly 1 million years. They named the species Ardipithecus ramidus, and the most complete individual among the finds was a female they called Ardi. She lived approximately 4.4 million years ago, and her skeleton, painstakingly reconstructed over 15 years from crushed and fossilized fragments, rewrote the story of human origins in ways that scientists are still absorbing. Ardi moved through the world, unlike any creature we had previously imagined at that age. She could walk upright, but she could also grasp branches, suggesting a creature in profound transition. Neither the knuckle-walking ape of popular imagination nor a fully modern walker, but something beautifully and bewilderingly in between. She had small canine teeth, a detail that suggested her social world was less dominated by male-on-male aggression, hinting at early forms of pair bonding, of social complexity, of something that a generous and careful mind might dare to call the first whispers of humanity's social nature. In one tiny skeleton, Ethiopia had handed science a new, first chapter for the human story, and the world was barely ready to receive it. Pause here for a moment and let the weight of that settle. We are not speaking of centuries or even millennia. We are speaking of millions of years. There is a straight and unbroken biological line from the bones found in that Ethiopian dust to the hands of every person watching this. This is not metaphor. This is molecular and skeletal fact, confirmed by fossil evidence, genomic research, and decades of peer-reviewed science. When you look at the landscape of the Afar, its barren volcanic plains, its shimmering heat, its silence broken only by wind and the distant call of birds, you are looking at the place that made you. Not symbolically, literally. Even as the bones of our oldest ancestors were being slowly surrendered by the earth, Ethiopia held another set of secrets. Secrets wrapped not in rock and sediment, but in faith and legend, and the golden shimmer of sacred objects. The city of Lalibela, carved deep into the basalt highlands of the Amhara region, is one of the most extraordinary architectural achievements in human history. Built during the reign of the Christian king Lalibela in the 12th and 13th centuries, the complex consists of 11 monolithic, rock-hewn churches, each carved directly downward into the living volcanic rock. The churches were not built upward from foundations in the conventional sense. They were excavated, carved downward and inward from the solid rock, sculpted from the mountain itself until structures of extraordinary beauty emerged, complete with columns, arches, windows, drainage systems, and interior spaces of breathtaking geometric precision. The largest of these churches, Bete Medhane Alem, is believed to be the largest rock-hewn church anywhere on Earth, and it was completed without mechanical tools, without modern engineering knowledge, without steel or concrete or cranes. Workers carved it with hand chisels, guided by vision and faith, and an architectural sophistication that still confounds modern analysis. How did a medieval Ethiopian kingdom, geographically isolated and technologically limited by the standards of the age, produce structures of such complexity in what historical accounts suggest was a remarkably short period of time? Whatever the answer, Lalibela remains a monument to human aspiration so vast and so strange that standing within its carved corridors in the incense-thick darkness, listening to the chanting of priests who maintain a religious continuity stretching back 8 centuries, you feel less like a visitor to a historical site and more like a traveler who has stepped directly into the living past. And then there is the matter of the Ark of the Covenant. This is where history and sacred tradition converge in a way that no scholar can fully untangle, and where Ethiopia's claim to world historical significance reaches its most astonishing and contested point. According to Ethiopian Orthodox Christian tradition, a tradition maintained with absolute certainty and extraordinary consistency across more than 2,000 years, the original Ark of the Covenant was brought to Ethiopia by Menelik, the son of King Solomon of Israel and the Queen of Sheba, known known in Ethiopian tradition as Makeda. The Ark, according to this tradition, has never left Ethiopia. It is there now, guarded by a single monk who devotes his life entirely to its protection and who is never permitted to leave its presence, and who, alone among all living human beings, is allowed to see it. Is this claim historically provable? By conventional archaeological standards, no. The Ark has never been subjected to scientific examination, and no external authority has been permitted to verify its contents or authenticate its origins. But the Ethiopian tradition is not easily dismissed. The Kebra Nagast is not a simple folk tale. It is a sophisticated theological and historical document that preserves traditions of remarkable antiquity. The Jewish community of Beta Israel in Ethiopia, the Falasha, maintained Jewish practices of extraordinary antiquity entirely independent of European Jewish tradition, suggesting a genuinely ancient connection between Ethiopia and the ancient Israelite world. Something happened in the ancient relationship between Ethiopia and the Israelite world. What that something was remains one of the most compelling, unsolved mysteries in the history of religion. And the fact that the answer, whatever it is, may be locked inside a small chapel in the ancient highland city of Axum gives this mystery a geographic precision that makes it almost unbearably tantalizing. There is one final revelation that ties these threads together in a way that is almost too elegant to be coincidental, though science insists on caution toward elegant coincidences. The Afar region of Ethiopia, which has given us Lucy and Ardi and dozens of other fossil hominin species, which has yielded some of the oldest stone tools ever discovered, crude but intentional flakes of rock struck against other rocks by hands not quite human, but nearly so, more than 3 million years ago. This same region sits at the junction of 3 tectonic plates that are very slowly, over geological time, pulling apart. The Afar Triangle is one of the few places on Earth where an ocean is being born. Millions of years from now, the land that today preserves the bones of our oldest ancestors will be submerged beneath a new sea, the sediments sealed forever, the library closed. But for now, in this brief window of geological time that coincides with the existence of human civilization and human science, the Earth holds its treasures open, offering them up with a generosity that borders on the miraculous. What does it mean that all of this, the fossils, the stelae, the rock-hewn churches, the sacred ark, the ancient trade routes, the oldest stone tools, the first footsteps of creatures learning to walk upright across a volcanic plain, what does it mean that all of this exists in one place? It means that Ethiopia is not a chapter in the human story. It is the first chapter, the oldest chapter, the chapter from which all others descend. Every civilization that has ever built a monument, written a law, worshipped a god, traded a commodity, or buried its dead with ceremony is connected, however distantly, to the highland plains and Rift Valley gullies of this ancient land. The ground of Ethiopia does not simply hold history, it holds the source of history itself, the point of origin from which every human achievement, every cathedral, every empire, every scientific breakthrough, every act of love and courage and creativity ultimately flows. Donald Johanson held Lucy's bones in his hands and understood in that firelit Ethiopian night that the world would never look at itself the same way again. He was right, but he was also only the latest in a long line of discoverers, archaeologists and priests, kings and monks, scholars and pilgrims who have stood on Ethiopian soil and felt the ground beneath them tremble with the weight of what it contains. That trembling has not stopped. The earth is still speaking. The excavations continue. The bones and tools and inscriptions keep emerging from the dust, each one a new sentence in a story that humanity is only beginning to learn how to read. What we know is extraordinary. What remains to be discovered is more extraordinary still. Ethiopia waits, ancient and patient, holding its secrets with the quiet dignity of a civilization that has always known it was the beginning of everything and has never needed the rest of the world to confirm it.